All right, good afternoon. Today's talk, we're going to have two speakers. They're going to go by M&M. Actually, one of them is Matthias. You'll have to figure out which one that is. They come from BIDS, which is the Berkeley Institute of Data Science. Okay. And the talk is building bridges, not walls.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today and caring both about Python 2 and Python 3 and how we can build bridges between the two community. And thank you for the organizers for this beautiful venue and also for having live captioning. So a bit about us. We've been working for IPython respectively and Jupyter project for respectively 5 and 1 year. You can find us on GitHub and on Twitter. We have the chance to work at BIDS that let us spend our time working on almost anything as long as it helps move science forward. And one of those things is actually bridging the gap between Python 2 and Python 3 to make science package easy to install and so on and so forth. And just one small slide, we have JupyterCon in August in New York. If you want to come, we will be there. You can go to jupytercon.com to have more information. So what this talk is not about, is Python 3 or is Python 2 the right choice? We're not going to decide here. The choice you make is yours. It's the right one. Should you migrate to Python 3 only? Again, it's your choice. We have our own thought about that. If you want to talk to us about whether you should do it or not, come and see us. But we're not going to talk about that in this talk. What this talk is about is how we migrated IPython to Python 3 only. And one of the things we really cared about was all our users, whether they're on Python 3 or Python 2 alike. We want to make the transition as least frustrating for users and for devs. And we're going to narrate you how we did that for the past 1 year. Python 2 versus Python 3 is an example. There are a lot of lessons to learn from this talk. If you're dropping support for 3.3 and going 3.4 only, these talks apply to you. If you're already a package which is Python 2 only and want to have less frustration for Python 3 users when they try to install your package and it's just blow up in their terminal, this talk is also for you. Same thing if you're 2.6 and above and you want to drop to 6 and not break for users, the information that are here are for you as well. If you want to find more information about that, you can go on the python3statement.org website that we maintain, and we welcome your contribution. It's basically a list of all packages that are stopping Python 2 support before 2020, and we want to warn users and tell users how it will affect them and give as much information. And if you're developers, it will also tell you how you can prepare your package to make the transitions as least frustrating as possible for your users. So we have a bunch of projects that have already signed up. If you see any of those, it means that by 2023, they will have dropped support for Python 2. And we have nice timelines. Green is Python 2 compatible, blue is Python 3 only. And what you can see, the red line is today, we are getting closer and closer to 2020 when it's end of life of Python 2. And you see that more and more projects are moving toward Python 3 only. This is why we focus this talk on the stopping Python 2 compatibility. So why we started this project? It was mostly to scratch our own itch. We wanted to release Python 6. Really want to write Python 3 only because we are academics and we spend a lot of time maintaining Python 2. And we care about our Python 2 users. And what we want to do is if a user just use, as usual, the command pip install IPython or even upgrade, it should install the latest version of IPython, which is compatible, and not IPython 6, which would be Python 3 only. But the problem is that in 2016, if you were to do that, basically someone do pip install IPython upgrade, assuming IPython 6 is online. The users read something like installing IPython, doing some magic, success, and then they do Python, import IPython, and then they have a huge stack trace that they basically read as syntax warning error, I don't like you. That's basically how I read things when I'm a user that don't know about a package. And so we want absolutely to avoid this. We want to have the best experience possible. So let's roll back to 2016, and we thought, what are the solutions that are available to us? What can we do? We scratch our head for quite some time and come with not really solutions. Just tell all your users that are on Python 2 to pip install IPython lower than 6. But then you have to teach them that they have to put quotes. They have to remember when they're on Python 3 environment not to do that. They have to remember when they're on Python 2 environment to do it correctly. They have to remember which version, etc., and so on and so forth. It's not the best solution. So we kept searching. Moreover, users do not always read documentation. So if you just release IPython 6, it's going to break. A lot of people rely on scripts, like on CI, for example. And it will mean that if we release a version of IPython that is not compatible with Python 2, all the script will break and hundreds of developers will chase us to the end of the earth with chainsaw, which we don't really like. Users and scripts do not read error messages. I don't personally. And dependencies, if other packages are depending on you, they have to change how they express dependencies depending on which Python version they are, which we all know is really easy to do because we love setup tools. We can also rename our package. That's going to be confusing and void most of the documentation on the internet. You know the XKCD, someone is wrong on the internet, I need to fix their code. Everybody have pip install Jinja when they want Jinja 2. And of course, import name are different from package name, so it's a bit tricky to explain why you need to import skimage and pip install scikit image. So renaming is not the best solution. It's a possible one, but nah. We can also release things that are wheels only. So for pure Python package, it's okay-ish, but often downstream distribution like Debian require you to publish an sdist, so a source distribution, a targz, or a zip. And wheels only allows a pure Python 2 versus Python 3 distinction. They don't have this finer grain, I'm going to drop support for 3.3 or drop support for 3.4. So it's not really perfect. So that's not really something we want to do. Then we say, we're going to use a meta package. We're going to make the IPython package just a shell that have different dependencies, whether you install it on Python 2 or Python 3, and require IPython-real, yes, really release this one. It's really there that the code is. That users don't install that directly, they just install IPython, and then they get the right thing. There are two problems that you need to re-release old code, because if you are to transform a normal package into a meta package, you're basically depending on an old version of yourself, which I don't know how pip would handle that. And if someone pip upgrade the meta package, pip will not pull the dependencies, and so users say, hey, there is a new version of IPython, let me upgrade it. Well, it's not upgraded, and then you have to go into explaining all these error messages where they install a package, but actually it's not the package they need to install and upgrade. So I don't want to deal with that either. It's less than optimal. So we started to dig and look into the code of pip, because not everything is well documented. And there is this beautiful piece of code. You can try to look into it, and if you squint and search carefully, you can see that the code which is used to match whether wheels needs to be installed or not is also triggered for source dist. So it's a hidden feature, not really a bug. And so if you really think about that, you realize that if you publish IPython Py3.3, Py3.4, Py3.5, Py3.6, so you release n source dists, well, each of those will only be installed on the compatible Python version. Well, I don't really want to publish n source dists. It doesn't really work for Python greater than 3.9, and we open the pull request to pip to say, hey, can you just make the regular expression a bit better so that it matches other things? And so it's like, oh, it's a bug. With a week after, you could only upload one source dist to PyPI, so this solution is now impossible. Okay, just like, okay, let's keep digging. And as Raymond Tenchinger would say, if you've seen some of his talks around, there must be a better way. And so we looked at some things that are anyways Python required. So since December, which is relatively recent. And since pip 9 and above, and if you have setup tools 24.3 or above, in your setup.py, you can put these new things called Python requires that you can tell it, here is the Python version I'm compatible with. And now, if you use pip install of a package that does declare this, it will adhere to this Python require and will not try to install this package for the Python version you're in. Do not call setup.py directly. You have to use pip install the package you want. So if you clone it, you need to do pip install dot. In greater details, Python requires metadata comes from PEP 345 from 2005, which means that 11 years ago, someone cared about that. The example in the PEP are for migrating from Python 2.1 to 2.2. But for 11 years, almost nothing understood and implemented this PEP. One of the things that didn't implement anything was setup tools, and now since setup tools 24.3, setup.py do understand the Python requires keyword, so you can say, hey, I'm compatible only with this version of Python. You have to understand that this is required both when you build the package and upload it, and when the users install it. For example, when they're on Linux, if wheels are not available for that platform, pip will download their sdist and try to install it. So you have to make sure that your users have Python setup tools greater than 24.3. So if you have users, please tell them, please upgrade your setup tools, because nobody ever upgrades their setup tools. The second thing is you need to have pip greater than 9.1. Version of pip lower than pip 9 will ignore completely the required Python metadata, which means that they will download something which is Python 3 only on Python 2. So it will run the setup.py, and then it will just like break the user system. So you want also to reach to your users and tell them, hey, what you want to do is upgrade your pip. You also want to reach to your CI, but your CI usually, when you send them mails, they don't respond, so update your script as well. And so that's mostly the new way. And to get into greater details, I'm going to leave the place to my colleague that did a lot of the work for you to understand. Thank you.
That was great. And now I'm going to get under the hood a bit. So this is the old PEP. This is where you have this definition of requires Python. And it's pretty straightforward. You've all seen version requirement statements. So you just include that. The question is, where do you include it? How do we use this? Well, first we have to patch all the things. And so the first thing that needed to change was building the build step. That is, in setup tools, as Matthias showed you, you need this Python requires argument. Slight caveat there later on if you're using other build tools. But after that, so now you've built your distribution, you're going to need to upload it somewhere. Where do you normally do that? You do that on PyPI or Warehouse. They're using the same underlying database, Postgres, and one of the tables in that database, release files, will actually surface this so that you can be able to show people the data that they need to know before they download whatever it is that they're trying to install, particularly showing pip, but I'll get to that in a second. So the PEP 503 is what defines the simple repository format. You may have seen these before if you've ever gone there and looked at the actual source code, but this is going to be what surfaces the requires Python information inside the data requires Python attribute. This is more or less what it looks like. You can see there we have 4 pip versions that don't have anything said about this, and then you have pip 9.0.1, and that's requiring something greater than or equal to 2.6, and not 3.0. anything. So you need to, if you have pip greater than 9, then when you go to install, it's going to check this on the simple repository if it's pulling from PyPI or anywhere really, if that is so set up, and then it won't download it if the version of Python that you are currently working with is not supported. So tying that all together, all of these things. It's been a lot of people's work, many people who are not on this stage. It's been amazing to get all the help, but all of it's happened now, so that's why all of the magic will work, so that you don't have to worry about breaking things for your users. Additionally, yesterday, PEP 518, and this is the caveat I was talking about before, PEP 518, an implementation of it for pip, was actually merged. So now, as soon as that ends up being released, you can use pyproject.toml to specify build dependencies. So that's going to make it much easier to use other installation tools such as Flit or Twine. And those two happen to be ones that I know are specifically following the requires Python data. If you are a person that works on such a tool and it also follows the requires Python data, please let me know, because then I can give you free advertising about your alternative packaging tool in future versions of this talk. But this now goes to all package maintainers. Please use tools and services that respect this. Tell people to upgrade to pip 9 greater. Use setup tools greater than 24.2. But most of all, tell your users to upgrade pip. Please tell them, otherwise none of this will work. So even if you have done that, though, there's a sort of many edge cases where all of this stuff can fall through. And in that case, if you want to be nice to your users, you still have to take into account that things aren't going to work perfectly every time. So you need some defensive packaging practices. We've had to implement that ourselves. So those basically come down to updating your documentation, CIs, and your scripts to use pip instead of setup.py, or Python setup.py. You need to actually keep setup.py and dunder init Python 2 compatible, and then catch the errors early so that you can, and then you need to tell them actually what's wrong, because that may not always be obvious, because it's not just really that it's Python 2 incompatible, but it might be that they need to update their pip. And then you should really be giving people, in these cases, multiple line error messages. Those seem to be fairly rare, but it's complicated, and so use the space available to actually communicate to your users what they need to fix. So more specifically, like update all of your documentation, update all your scripts, update all your CI systems to use pip install dot. Don't use Python setup.py. It's ignoring Python requires Python, but then also now pyproject.toml. Keep your setup.py Python 2 compatible. If setup.py runs at all in this sort of a situation, someone in Python 2 trying to install IPython 6.0 or greater, that's probably because they have an old pip. So in that case, don't actually just say that the package isn't compatible with Python 2. What you really want to do is tell them, hey, upgrade your pip, because you shouldn't be in this state anyway. And so this is a reduced version of how it's implemented in IPython. You see, we mentioned the Python 2, Python 3 compatibility stuff, but then the key at the bottom, the thing that people are going to probably have their eyes fall on first, is make sure you have pip 9.0.1 or greater, because then you won't ever see this error message. Similarly, in your dunder init, you want to keep that Python 2 compatible, because people are clever and they work off of master and say they're installing in an editable install, and then they pull the latest version of your library. Well, now you have an incompatible version of your library on their Python 2 system. So in that case, you need to catch something in dunder init, and so you just check the version info, add an import error. Now in this case, you don't need them to update pip, because they weren't really using pip. That wasn't the problem here, because they just pulled down the new version. So you just need to tell them that it is Python 2 incompatible. So how did this go for us? The upper graph is IPython 5, the downloads off of PyPI. The lower graph is downloads of IPython 6. The blue and cyan are Python 2 downloads. The orange are Python 3 downloads with pip 9. As you can see in the IPython 5 case, Python 2 downloads, if you're using pip 9, that's the distinction between the blue and the cyan, whether it's pip 9 or pip 8. they've gone on uninterrupted. On the other hand, for people who were using pip8, you can see immediately after that dotted line, the vertical line there is when we released IPython 6.0. Well, we had a spike of people trying to get the latest version of IPython, and they didn't upgrade pip, and as a result, you see many more downloads there. However, within a week, it basically leveled out, and now we're getting almost nothing. So it seems that most of our users, if they are Python 2 users, actually did read the error message, and they upgraded pip because they're awesome. And as you can see now, the Python 3 has, the IPython 6 and Python 3 has had no problems whatsoever, just maintaining a steady pace. So we've had two kinds of bug reports and complaints during the RC period. People were using, particularly in CI systems, Python setup.py install, and because that doesn't respect the requires Python information, they got it on Python. They got 6.0 on Python 2, which is going to break because we told you it was going to break, because that's what the problem. Like, this is why. Please don't use Python setup.py. And then our second error message, which more or less said, my bad, I thought the pip upgrade error message was irrelevant. When I upgrade pip, it works. So please, everyone, upgrade pip too. So some quick conclusions over all of the various things that have been going on. In terms of IPython specifically, IPython 6 going forward, IPython is going to be Python 3 only, at least the 6th version. We're still updating the IPython 5.x, Python 2 long-term support branch, and our transition has gone relatively well, as those graphs indicate. We've got people have stopped downloading incompatible versions, which is exactly what we wanted to see. They are successfully able to get the compatible versions that allow them to continue to have delightful projects, whatever those happen to be. And honestly, we've been trying to forge this path now so that all of you with your libraries can move ahead even more easily, and it should only continue to get easier. And then in terms of converting your packages to Python 3 only, the sort of general idea, just use packaging tools that respect requires Python information. It's in a PEP. It's followed now by all of the standard procedures. So actually take that into account and use requires Python in your setup.pys. And additionally, encourage everyone, everywhere. Just tell them to upgrade pip. If you can upgrade pip, do it, because otherwise you're going to run into these kind of problems. If you're going to be releasing this kind of a thing, follow these defensive packaging practices that I briefly overviewed. And then if you really want to, you can read and contribute to the Python 3 statement, because if you want to move your package to Python 3 only, you are seemingly interested in the sorts of things that the Python 3 statement supports. Maybe you're a scientific Python package, maybe you're not. But regardless, the practicalities will matter to you, and it'll matter to us, because you'll learn things that you'll be able to contribute back. And with that, I just want to say thanks. Remind everyone that people from the Python 3 world, sorry, that might not be as easily legible. For Python 2 users, that's a heart. We love you, and we don't want to hurt you or break any of your things. You can get our slides there, and I think with that, we will take questions.
Hi.
Any questions?
I have a question. You said a lot of people put work in several different projects. How did you get everyone to do that? How long was that process?
You've been doing it for much longer than I.
So we know each other, and we're famous when we say we ask people to migrate to Python 3, they do. No, just kidding. No, I mean, we actually reach to people we've been reaching to people for a really long time. We go and see some libraries and say, hey, you're awesome people, you're working in open source, you're spending a lot of time to help Python users. There is this solution. Are you willing to do that now? And say, no, I'm not. They say, no, not now. We can't even bring the discussion to the mailing list. of our project. But we did that more than a year ago, and the ideas are making their way into people's head. And now you have people that were completely against doing that, that are, well, maybe it's a good solution. I have seen people doing that. And by reaching directly to people by one, by saying, we did that for you, do you want to do that? It does work, and that's why we're doing it here. We are a big project. We are Python. We have a lot of users. A lot of people are afraid to do it because nobody did it before. And by telling them, hey, we've done that before you, it's okay, it works, they listen way better than if you just say you should do that. If you say, I've done it. And we go into project, we help them, we say, here, the pull request is only 5 lines, it works. And if you reach the right people, they say, well, it's a good idea, and I've seen that Matplotlib is going to do it. And it's true, 2020 is only in 2 years, 2 years and a half. And they just say yes, and they come by. And you really have to just talk to people at conferences, go to meetups, talk to them, and exchange it by mail. Don't just send something to the wild on Twitter, and it works really great. People are, single people are receptive. Crowds tend to be afraid and go against the movement. But if you talk to a maintainer, the maintainer will usually be, yes, it's a good idea. I will bring that with my users and the other developers when it's the right time. And often the discussion will go really well.
Hi, great talk. Okay, I'll go. Just to check quickly, so your recommendation to use pip instead of Python setup.py, is that just for installation? Because setup tools does other things like building native extensions and so on.
Yes, it's mostly in your documentation when you tell users how to upgrade packages and how to install packages. There is a difference between Python setup.py install or Python setup.py develop and pip install dot or pip install -e dot. Pip does a lot of things for you behind the scene. It passes a lot of flags, it sets up a lot of things. And the other things you've seen the pyproject.toml mention is that some people want to install their package or build their package with a tool which is not setup tools. And by having a single message, hey, the way to install a package is pip install the package name when the package name is on PyPI, and saying when it's a local package, do pip install dot. Then you give a single message to the Python community. This is how to install a package. And then you break this 10,000 way of installing things that confuse users and make users believe that Python 2 versus Python 3 or Python packaging is hard. One of the things that we were going to say at the beginning is a lot of speakers are avoiding to speak about controversial subject. We choose to speak about Python 2 versus Python 3 and packaging at the same time. And we probably managed to do it in this talk.
Without angering anyone, it seems.
Hopefully.
Hi. So first, thank you guys for leading this charge. May not have injured anyone. Have you helped anyone? So have you seen any movement of users from Python 2 to Python 3 in order to get the new features in IPython 6? Do you have any evidence, or have you done any sort of quantification of downloads? Are you seeing any shift because of this action?
We're probably in a really biased community. We have a really small view. A lot of people are excited.
Yeah.
And we can share notebooks that give the graphs. We probably should have released IPython 6 and IPython 5.4 at the same time.
Because then we could have actually tested which of the things is actually being upgraded versus just installed that has been pinned or something like that. But in terms of particular users with particular use cases for Python, IPython 6 and upgrading to Python 3 for that purpose, I think we would need to do more user research to be able to answer that. But you know, open source projects and user research without doing like extensive telemetrics is always somewhat hard.
Thank you.
I didn't see Django on your Python 3 statement. Did you try to reach them?
So it's been unclear to me if Django is actually stopping Python support before 2020. We are fine changing the Python 2 statements. At first, we focused it on research projects, mostly
Specifically scientific Python research projects.
Just to get a stronger message as a first pass. When you come to we started that because we didn't know at the time that Django would drop Python 2 support. if we have and the phrasing is really research-based if you look at the Python 3 statement. If non-research project like Django want to join, we are happy to change the phrasing, and we will be really happy to have them on the page. The main point of this page is if you're wondering whether your project is going to drop Python 2 support, or you want to have a nice timeline of plain support, please come and ask your things to this page, and then users will know that they have to go to this page, and if they want to convince their manager that they need to drop, to migrate to Python 3 because Django is going away, then they can come here, and we will be really happy to get the Django maintainer and talk with them.
Thanks very much for this. So I was wondering if there's a written version of this that sort of lays out the best practices, since there are so many contingencies.
The Python 3 statement
that
has
statement
a
itself has
practicalities section that
Great.
will describe.
So Python 3 statement website, completely on GitHub, you can contribute. You have the nice project that are participating with logo, without logos, a nice timeline. And if you go at the bottom, you have practicalities. We're bad at CSS. We're Python programmers, right? Practicality page has all we said here about how to do stuff, why,
And so much more.
and so much more.
Awesome. Thank you.
We have only so much time per day, so if you want to add stuff, feel free to send pull requests.
Yes, we're very happy to take contributions.
And if you send a pull request and you say, hey, can I have commit right, we will probably say yes and give you commit right.
I think that's it for questions. So thank you all for being a wonderful audience.